Laban was the father of Leah and Rachel and father-in-law of Jacob. He was the brother of Rebekah, wife of Isaac and son of Bethuel, the wire. Therefore, besides Jacob's father-in-law, Laban was also his uncle. In Hebrew, the name Laban probably means white. And in this video, you will know the true story of Laban in the Bible. Laban lived in Arah, the main city of the Padan-Aram region in Mesopotamia. Remember that Laban's father, Bethuel, was the son of Nahor, the brother of Abraham. This part of the family remained in Aram after the immigration of Laban and Lot after the death of Willow. It was in the lands of Laban that Isaac and Jacob found their respective wives. Isaac, as we know, married Laban's sister, Rebekah, while his son Jacob married the two daughters of Laban, Leah, and Rachel. Thus, Laban first appears in the Bible in the episode in which Abraham sent his servant Aram to find a wife to his son Isaac. On this occasion, Laban's greedy character has already been revealed. The biblical text shows that he was very impressed and interested in the valuable gifts that the patriarch's servant carried. Then quickly, Laban agreed and encouraged the marriage, as we read in Genesis chapter 24. Long after, Jacob left for Laban's house, fleeing his brother Esau's wrath, and also with the aim of finding a wife inside of your family. There he met Rachel, whom he soon fell in love with, and wishing to marry the girl, Jacob signed an agreement with Laban in which he would be employed for 7 years in the care of his flocks. In return, he would receive the right to marry Rachel, as we read in Genesis chapter 29. But Laban tried to deceive Jacob, giving him as his wife his eldest daughter, Leah, instead of Rachel. When Jacob realized that he had been deceived by Laban, he asked him for explanations. Laban then claimed that in those lands, the youngest daughter could not marry before her eldest daughter. So a new job agreement was made. Jacob agreed to work another 7 years so he could marry Rachel. Of course, in this episode, Laban was very cunning and deceiving. Scholars even argue about the veracity of the tradition alleged by Laban. This is because when Laban made the first agreement with Jacob for Rachel's marriage, no time did he warn him that the agreement was not fulfilled. If his eldest daughter was still single when the time was to be honored. Also, it seems strange that Jacob didn't know this custom after 7 years living in Laban's house, as it is a fact that the biblical text shows Jacob surprised and outraged for marrying Laban's daughter he didn't love. But in any case, although perhaps there was even this customary having to get married before the young, it is clear that Laban's main goal was to take advantage of Jacob, as he quickly took care of proposing a new agreement to explore Jacob for another 7 years. Later, Jacob wanted to leave Laban's house and return to his land, but Laban didn't want him to leave. The truth is that the greedy Laban believed that he had prospered because of Jacob's presence in his lands. Then he proposed to hit a salary with Jacob from his flock. Laban sought an agreement that thought it was lucrative for himself, in which it was agreed that certain animals would belong to Jacob. But Jacob prospered a lot, and his herd grew beyond the herd of his father in law, and with Laban alternating sometimes of the agreement. Finally, as we read in Genesis chapter 31, realizing that Laban felt harmed to hear that the children of Laban said that he had enriched at the expense of his father, Jacob gathered his family, his flocks, and his servants, and returned to Highland after 20 years of service in Aram. But unlike the other children of Laban, Leah and Rachel believed that Laban had bowled to all of them to satisfy their greed. In Genesis chapter 31, verse 15, they acknowledged that they had been unfairly used by their own father as coins of exchange to get more goods. So when Laban learned that Jacob had left, he promptly endeavored to pursue him along the way. But during his endeavor, God warned him not to do any evil to Jacob. Even so, when Laban reached Jacob, he accused him of forcing his daughters to accompany him and stolen his idols. But none of this was true. Leah and Rachel did not leave with Jacob forcibly. In addition, Jacob had not stolen the idols of his father-in-law's house. The person responsible for this was Rachel, and her husband didn't even know what she had done. It is clear in the biblical text that Laban considered theft of his home idols something very serious. He even searched Jacob's camp in search of these objects, and Jacob himself confirmed that the person who had stolen the idols was dignified of death. The Bible provides no further explanations about why Rachel stole the idols of Laban's house, but recent archaeological discoveries shed a little light on this episode. Newsy's tablets reveal that these idols, called in the Bible of teraphims, were usually small statuettes that, besides having a religious meaning when supposedly proving protection and fertility to the family, they also had an important legal value. This is because the possession of these idols guaranteed the leadership of the family and the right to inheritance. Then, by stealing the idols of Laban, it is possible that Rachel tried to ensure the claim of inheritance and care that her husband was recognized as leader of the Laban clan. And having this context as a background, it is easier to understand Laban's discontent and the subsequent alliance established between him and Jacob to preserve peace and mutual respect between them. But it is also worth mentioning that, despite this legal meaning did not exclude the fact that those idols were a form of idolatry. Even later, as we read in the first verses of chapter 35 of the book of Genesis, before climbing Bethel, Jacob ordered all those who accompanied him had to get rid of the strange gods. After establishing the alliance with Jacob, Laban consented to his definitive and peaceful departure. And after this episode, Laban no longer appears in the biblical text, so that the Bible no longer brings any information or details about the end of his life. So we don't know how long he lived, let alone how Laban died. What we really know is that, in short, the story of Laban in the Bible reveals that he was a man of duplicity. He was cunning and biased to greed. He also recognized the power of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.